For those who don't know what I'm doing, when I do this, it is just a way of honoring you. Suggestive of bowing to you in honor of you. You know, there's a kind of waiting to see what is going to be spoken. It's the same for me. It's true. But the thing of it is that the language, the words, the content create a bridge for the mind. Mind wants to understand, take home information, see if it makes sense or does not make sense. But this in truth has nothing at all to do with what makes sense. It has nothing to do with content. It has nothing to do with the mind. What it is about is the taste of who you are when the habit of living in the mind for a moment relaxes. And feeling into what cannot disappear. What cannot disappear is the feeling of the heart. The feeling of the heart is the sense of wholeness that is not divided. The thing about the feeling of heart is it is the same feeling for every player, because it is the same thing. It is the essential aspect of yourself that has been forgotten in the busyness of mind activity. That is all nothing but a confluence of thoughts. Every single thing that is known is a thought. All of it is derived from the story of me. The story of me is derived from what is called the past. It's where your identity comes from. It's where your story comes from. It's where every single thing that is known comes from. But the thing about it is the nature of the heart is alive now. It is not a story. It's a feeling. It's not a perceptive feeling. It's a feeling that is everywhere. It is unbounded. This feeling has nothing prior to it, and it has nothing after it. It's also called the feeling of now. It's the feeling of yourself. has abandoned relationship with the feeling of their own self by being lost in a story of who I am. The story of who I am is the past. But outside of the story, there is no such thing as a past. There's only a story of the past out of which everything known is built. Me, my life, what I'm doing, where I'm going. It's the information that can project into a future. Mind is the story of the past projecting into the story of the future, and it pulls the attention away from reality. Reality is what is now. What is now is the feeling of the heart. On some level, every story is searching for now. But story cannot discover now. The story itself pulls you away from what is here. It's not something to attain, it's the nature of who you are. The habit of conditioning causes a seduction of attention into the story of someone who is always going somewhere and doing something, while the feeling of the heart is not a doing, but it is the taste of pure peace. It is the taste of pure love. It is the taste of true happiness, and it is innate in your nature, but has been forgotten. When you are lost in the beauty of the heart, you no longer experience yourself as someone or something. You no longer experience yourself as living in time, for the heart is alive now. It's always now. It is not defined by a point of reference. It is felt everywhere. Just to see if the feeling of your beingness is defined by anything. It is not an attainment, it is a relaxation. It is not a gain, it is a letting go. It is not in some future, it is now. It is the simple feeling of your own existence, your own being. When you are lost in it, the experience of doing vanishes. You are lost in reality, and everything starts taking care of itself, except all of the effort and struggle and strain and chaos is gone. And you cannot believe that you have missed it. What is right here, what has always been right here, the feeling of your own nature. You can feel that there is something in the words that is more important than the content. because it is not coming from content. It is coming freshly, with no idea where it is going to go or what it is going to do. Arising out of being, arising out of heart. And in that there is something that can be felt. Like immediately the level of silence and connection in the room deepens. Because for a moment, the amount of chaos that spins in the mind begins to relax. The distractive habits begin to relax. And you begin to feel the simplicity of the wholeness of your nature that the conditioned mind has been searching for, yet is the distraction from. Cannot really explain why there is a heightened sense of calm. Your perception can look at a form in this chair and say, it's coming from that form. But when you feel it, instead of move through the mind into the arena of perception, what you feel is everywhere, equally. And the source of from where it comes is within you. Perhaps you can feel that that feeling is unbounded, that everything that appears within that feeling. And then the experience of separate individuals begins to melt away, and you begin to feel the nature of your being that is infusing all of it. Eventually you cannot tell if you're in any location at all, because living through the point of reference of the body has all been at the hands of a conditioned habit called the egoic mind that lives in the experience of the future, projects into the experience, lives in the experience of the past, projects into the experience of the future, and bypasses reality, which is eternally now. What is eternally now is eternal. It's always now. In truth, you have always lived now. And then there is the overlay of the story that pulls the attention, that recreates an identity called me, and causes the experience of doing and choosing. But when there is the simple willingness to just let that go, there is a taste of something that you cannot describe, but is longed for. It's not away from you. It's not away from. It is the only thing that is not away from. It is everywhere. It is nowhere the mind can find, because the mind exists in past meeting future, and your being is eternally now. It is what the mind calls nothing, but the feeling is the feeling of everything. It is the feeling of heart, where all is one. And the nature is pure love, and the taste is complete peace. And out of it arises joy that is not about anything, but discovered to have always been your nature. But there has just been this forgetting, all built upon the survival of a character that is nothing more than a habit, a story. In this moment, when you simply take a moment and let go of the habit of living in the story of a past within which you do not exist. You have never existed in a past. There's only a story of the past. If you take a few minutes and let go of the habit of living out of that story, then there is no identity, for the identity is derived out of that story. So the question is, who are you without an identity that is drawn from a past that can never be found substantially? It can only be looked back upon in a story. But without the story, who are you? It is to feel what does not disappear. Most everyone has had a taste, whether they are spiritually oriented or not. Perhaps it is looking into the eyes of a newborn infant, being with someone at the time they are passing, going to a place that you absolutely love, engaged in some art form where you can completely get lost. What is held in common is not the activity, but the taste of passion, the taste of love, the taste of aliveness, the taste of peace. It happens when the habit of living out of a story of the past relaxes for a moment and you taste your nature. It's all this is really about. Tasting the nature that you already are. Falling into the heart, falling into the beauty that you are. When you are absorbed in the beauty, the experience that I am choosing and doing vanishes. If someone is engaged in dance and they are passionate about it, they are not figuring out what they are going to do. It just flows. And that's why there is the passion. So you are welcome to raise your hand what are we doing? Setting up the sound. You know, maybe we'll do what we did yesterday. Maybe we could bring a chair up. Is there an empty chair?
That's a rarity.
Thank you. So, what this opens the possibility for, I can repeat the question if there's not going to be the use of the mic. But you do not have to have a question. As a matter of fact, a lot of times it works much better if you don't. Because all questions come from vacating reality into the habit, into the story. That is the common experience for almost everyone. But this is all about the taste when the habit of knowing relaxes and then seeing what happens. So if there is a question, you are welcome. It also invites that. And if you just want to come and sit here and see what happens and connect from a shorter distance, you're welcome to do that. Yes, please.
What would you say about all the physical illness that's in the world?
Do people hear?
No.
What would I say about all the physical illness in the world? I'd say there's a lot of physical illness. In this play of life, for the common person, the sum total of their experience is based on the body, on how the body is. The body is driven by two fundamental forces, and that is fear and desire. Fear and desire drives the body. Desire is the desire to feel good, the desire for pleasure. Fear is the fear of pain, anything that does not feel good. They both keep the mind spinning, craving pleasure, fearing pain. The fear of pain plays itself out in attempts to control. The craving for pleasure is desire going after something. It's happening in very subtle ways all the time. In fact, when there is no desire and no fear, there is no thought. When there is no thought, there is no definition. When there is no definition, there is no past. When there is no past, there is no identity. Where there is no identity, there is no relationship with anything that is a thing. I know this is going like 5 feet over your head, but here to answer your question in a way that can be understood in the play, it is the play of polar opposites. If there is an up, there is a down. Otherwise, there is no up. If there is a good, there has to be a bad. There cannot be a good without a bad. It's the play of duality. If there is to be an inside, there has to be an outside. If there is birth, there has to be death. If there is growth, there has to be decay. But nothing is the way it seems to be. Nothing. Nothing is the way it seems to be. Everything is completely perfect, even though it seems completely imperfect from the conditioned mind's perspective. There is nothing outside the hand of God. Nothing. For instance, you believe that you are thinking. If you stop and become really, really present, what is possible to notice is that thoughts just arise with a feeling that you are the thinker, but you can never find someone choosing the thought. Just like emotion. You don't say, I think I'm going to feel worried today. And then worry comes up. It just comes up. And the story is, I am doing it. It's me. But if you are really, really present, such that you watch what arises and from where it is arising from, what is noticed is there is no chooser. There only seems to be. Like the position your body is in. The story is, I chose to be in this position. But you cannot remember choosing to be in this position. The lips are pursed. I'm pursing my lips, but you can't find where the choice came from, the rate of your breath. You can't find what caused the breath to be at this rate. Looking down just for a second, your story is you look down, but if you're present, you notice it just happened. It's all just happening. There is one source that is animating everything. When you are lost in connection with that source, you live in ecstasy, you live in heaven, you are freed from all of it, and you can feel the perfection of what the mind has interpreted as imperfect. It is not about what I am thinking, how I am feeling. It's about what is aware of that. There is something aware of the body that the mind calls yours. Otherwise there would be no body awareness. There's something aware of that body. It is not defined by the body, it is aware of the body. Can you feel what I'm speaking about? There is something bigger than the body that is aware of the body. When you are resting there, everything changes. See, you're thinking, as soon as you think, you are pulled out of that, and you are lost in the belief that you are thinking. But when you are aware, it is clear it is all just happening. There is no chooser, but there is this perfect wisdom that is orienting everything. If you would just trust and fall into that, everything changes in ways you could never possibly imagine. You know, I spoke last night that the crucifixion is referred to as the Passion of Christ. Nobody has a clue of what that means unless you have broken out of the illusion. If you have broken out of the illusion, you know exactly what that means. Nothing is the way it seems. The common person lives within a box that controls the experience. But there is something so much bigger, so much bigger. The nature of your being is eternal. It's always now. Your existence is always only now. There is no past to the feeling. There is no identity to the feeling. When you really fall into it, you live in the experience of what is eternal. Questions like, what about these bodies that are ailing? What relationship does that have with the feeling of eternity? It does not remove compassion, it intensifies it. What is removed is the suffering, and all suffering is based on misunderstanding. All suffering is based on misunderstanding. So you're doing a very good job. I know that most of what I say seems really quite foreign. Well, you say no. I mean, you understand the concepts, and you've had little tastes, but...
I want a magic potion that will bring me there.
Sorry?
I want a magic potion that will bring me there.
Well, that's exactly why I'm here. The thing about it is it's not an easy deal. It doesn't happen by drinking a magic potion. Yeah, no, I know. But the thing is if you really want it, if you want it, then I want you. It's just the way it works. Most people have a lukewarm relationship with it. They tinker on the edges of it and say it's impossible. But it is the nature of who you are. It's the hunger of every being, whether they know it or not. And it is the nature of who you are. The thing about wanting something is if you really want it, you go for it. If you don't go for it, it will remain elusive. Yes.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on agape love. Agape love,
I don't know what agape love is.
the connection between the higher power and ourselves with the higher power. Do you feel society is losing its connection with that, or is it actually on the rise again?
Could people hear the question? The question is whether society is losing its perspective,
It's connection.
its connection with true love, with true nature. Okay. Have a little water first. So I'm going to speak to you of my experience. In my experience, and it has been confirmed over and over and over again by so many, this is no different than a nighttime dream, except it is longer. When you are dreaming at night, you have none of the insights while you were dreaming because you are bound to the character. When you wake up, you are no longer bound to the character, and you realize every character was an aspect of my own psyche. During the dream, there is the experience that you choose and you are doing. But when you wake up, you realize it was all choiceless. It was all just a representation of an aspect of yourself, otherwise you would not be able to see. When you feel your heart, when you are in the higher relationship, feeling the presence that is unbounded, you feel the limitless nature of it. When you are lost in it, you see that everything that is appearing within the feeling. What seemed like solid objects all carry the same substance, which is the feeling of being, the feeling of heart, the feeling of the beauty. it all takes on a dreamlike quality. And then what happens is, as soon as there is forgetting, and there is a return to the experience that I am separate and I am the doer, the play of karma immediately takes over. The same kind of issues and problems return. When you remember who you are, what you taste is the perfection of everything. You feel the love that is animating everything, and everything works in harmony. Even if it would not be seen that way from the mind, you can feel it. So we as a population are nothing more than aspects of your own self. It is why when one person breaks free, it affects everyone and everything. Because that which was boxed into a point of reference is set free into everything. It is also simple. Anything that is theoretical is a step away because it is in the mind. It is all about this moment. Reality is this moment. Anything that has to do with a past or a future is in the theoretical mind. In this moment, when there is no relationship with any story, there is no identity, and then there is only a higher relationship, the devotion of your own being to the pure love of the beloved, which is discovered to exist within your own heart. And it's everywhere and moving everything. And when you are in connection with it, what is reflected back to you in this dream is the perfection and the beauty and the love in everything. When there is forgetting, the old dynamics and issues become experienced again. It becomes a teaching that when there is the readiness to let all of it go, then the whole reflection that we call the world morphs into this recognition of relationship with the heart. It is just about feeling the heart. What could be more simple than that? What could be more beautiful than being lost in the love that lives within you? Letting go of the headaches of story of past and future, and falling into the peace and beauty and happiness that lives within you. And having the courage to just remain where you want to remain, and letting the body take care of itself. You believe you take care of the body. It is a big misunderstanding. Yes. Yes, you are welcome to come up. Okay, I know it is unusual to connect directly with the eyes like this. It can bring up a lot of discomfort. I can feel it's not completely comfortable, to say the least. Courage is to just let that arise. Just to let it arise. So you feel the heart is beating fast, the breath is shallow. Just let it be. Every ego is afraid of being seen. Every ego believes that there is something fundamentally wrong with me. Every single ego does. The eyes are the windows into the soul, and that's why it feels so intimidating. That's why people very rarely make true eye contact. So it is just remaining, and you witness the protective mechanisms coming up, and you just let it be there. What are you experiencing right now? Very hot. I'm experiencing that too.
Experiencing my heart beating fast.
Yes, your heart is beating fast.
Sense of embarrassment.
A sense of embarrassment for what?
There's lots of people around.
Yes, there are lots of people around. You did something that took an enormous amount of courage. Nothing to be embarrassed about having courage. Everybody spends their lives typically hiding. If I was one-on-one in a room with every person in this room, there would be questions every person would ask. But we are all conditioned to protect ourselves. We are all built around fear, and the fear is the fear of being seen. The doorway into freedom is the willingness to take the risk and step through the conditioned mind's fears. And then you get to see there's a sense of embarrassment. But it's hold. The feeling of attention causing embarrassment is hold. Everything that is an issue is a repetition. Everything that is an issue is a repetition. It is coming out of this wisdom, because you cannot see it's all a repetition if it doesn't come up. It's not your choice. The embarrassment, the sense of feeling hot just happens by itself. It's not something you are doing. It's something that just repeats itself. You are not only courageous, but you are completely innocent. You are not generating those thoughts, just like you are not in control of the temperature of the body. But there was the courage to step through where no one else would do it, to take this seat to see what would happen. The question then is, what is it that brought forth this courage? Yes, this is beautiful. I want a new life. This is the pull of the heart. It is the yearning of the heart. It will carry you through what conditioning has told you not to do, because there is a longing in every single being, because there is something so much more beautiful that can be known. And there is the courage to take the step. That is the farthest thing from something embarrassing, even though embarrassment comes up by the grace of God, to see that all of the times you felt embarrassment, it was never anything you were doing wrong. It is just a cyclical pattern that plays in the play. And the truth is, you have a great deal of courage. My sense is that when you were a child, you followed this courage, and the feedback you got caused embarrassment. Does this make sense to you? Yes? Yes. Every person's issues is all repetitious from childhood. It's set up to set you free when you have the courage to see the innocence of everything. When the heart is on fire and really hungers to know truth, it will carry you through conditioning and show you there is another way. What is your name? Rita?
Dureena.
Dureena. It's very, very nice to meet you, Dureena. Courage is beautiful. The sense of embarrassment harms nothing. It is just a stimulus response mechanism. The nature of egoic mind is nothing more than a stimulus response mechanism. Particular stimulus automatically causes particular response based on very young conditioning. And whatever that stimulus is, periodically will cycle around. From the mind's perspective, it's why we fear life. But what is seen when you are out of the box is that the nature of the repetition is your salvation. Because when you see the way it works, you see there is no one to blame. When you were newborn and infant, you could not understand what was happening. To avoid the hit of coming into this play of separation, there was the need for protection. Protection is the numbing blanket of what is called ego. Out of this protection, there were all kinds of strategies built to avoid that kind of thing from happening again. But no matter how hard you try, it cycles around again and again. The story is that it's something new, but if you go inside instead of outside, you discover every single issue is a repeat. The repeat happens for the potential of seeing what is really playing. You cannot be free if you are not free from things you have not been able to truly see. You cannot truly see unless you are fully present. When you are fully present, you see it as all just a stimulus response mechanism. It's all innocent. It's all just programmed. It is a system that has drawn the attention away from the nature of who you are, which is totality, which is purity, which is love, which is light. And it just cycles around again and again and again with the possibility of seeing the way it really works. When you see the way it really works, the light of consciousness is placed on what has been unconscious, and then you are extricated. So thank you.
I wanted to come up here unprepared.
Beautiful.
Very much out of character.
Yes, you wanted to come up unprepared, and it is very much out of character.
see what happens.
Yes, and just see what happens.
I'd like to ask you about your use of the word hunger.
The word hunger.
Hunger
Yes.
in contrast to desire.
Yes. When I'm speaking of the word hunger, what I am speaking of is longing. Longing is in the moment. It's not in the future. It is the pull of self to self. It is the pull of love to itself. It is a remembrance that is alive within you now. It's not about a future. You can feel it. It's like this fire. The deeper the taste, the greater the fire becomes. It is a love affair. It is nothing at all like desire. But what happened was you came into the chair with all of this courage, and then you asked the question. I realized the question came up, but in a subtle way it was diverting. Being here with absolutely no agenda at all. And then seeing what happens. So in just being here, having no idea, what having no idea means is you have no idea who I am. I'm not some being that in your mind has something you want. You have no idea who I am. You have no idea who you are. It's kind of like being a newborn infant. You're just here. Here we are, without an agenda, just here. So what do you experience?
The stillness.
You experience the stillness.
There is a contentment.
Yes, you experience a contentment.
And there's an ease as well.
Yes, there is an ease as well. It is your nature. It is your nature. It lives in not knowing anything.
It's a lack of absence.
Yes, that's exactly right. It is a lack of absence. So simple. So simple. And then to just feel the heart. The heart is coming alive, the feeling of the heart, the feeling of what is within. Can you feel that it is more alive in the feeling of the heart?
I can feel a certain kind of simplicity or a lack of stuff.
Yes, that's great. It's good enough. It's first time, you know. It is bottomless. There is no end to it. It gets deeper and richer and deeper and richer and deeper and richer. What springs out of it is a joy you could never, ever, ever have imagined. It's all within you. It's all about taking the chance of knowing nothing and feeling what does not disappear. It's so simple.
Thank you.
You are very welcome.
I want to ask you, what are your thoughts about the ego? Is it positive or is it negative?
Positive and negative are thoughts of the ego.
So how do you like the ego?
You know, I don't really have a relationship with what you call the ego any longer. It was once a protection. It enabled survival, coming into a play that was incredibly challenging, coming into this world out of being connected with everything in your divine nature and coming into a vibratory level where everything experienced itself as being separate, and there was all of these tensions, and the initial hits come, and then the grace of this numbing blanket that softens everything, and this strategy to get away from that pain by diverting the attention into the constant stimulus of perception, the stimulus that draws the attention to the past and the future about a character, while the truth of who you are is the eternal love. But the ego does not understand. It had this hit. It is built to avoid the hit again. Its survival tactics was to build this blanket of this numbing, which numbed the suffering, but it numbed everything, including the numbing causing the forgetting of who you are. Out of it, all of these survival strategies about a character born out of the past, projected into the future, but has never existed now. When you are free of that character, you live in a state of eternal joy that you cannot even begin to know. It was a great service initially, but if true happiness is yearned for, relationship with that is no longer necessary.
So I'm thinking that the ego also protects in certain situations. As you say, it's both taking distance, but it is also like it's judging the other situation based on a self-made story. So is it possible to live in a world without protection in the society that we created? You believe?
If one lives in the world of the ego, which almost everyone does, there is the need for protection. If you live in reality, you realize that protection is a complete mirage, because all that is being protected is an identity. All that is being protected is nothing more than an identity. Who is being protected? Me. Who is the me? Who are you? Who are you if you let go of your story? I realize your story creates an experience, but if you let go of your story, then who are you?
Is that a question?
Yes, it is.
Energy?
Does energy need to be protected?
Well, it needs to be gathered somehow.
Who needs to gather it?
The person holding the space?
Who is the person holding the space without an identity? It's all a story. One thought leads to another thought. It's all distraction. What I'm trying to point to is reality. Reality is now. It's where life is. If you want to be a participant in life, then you live in the reality of life, which is now. Now is not a knowing, it's not a future, it's not a someone, it's a feeling. It's the feeling of the heart, it's the feeling of passion. Anytime you go into any story about anything, you are distracted and you're pulled away from reality, and you are no longer a participant in true life. There is no good or bad in true life. There is no future or past in true life. In fact, there is no body in true life. It is all a habit. I know this seems really way out there. I mean, it seems way out there for me. I'm so used to talking to people who are like so immersed in this. It's like I realize that I'm not really speaking in middle ground, which is probably what most people do. But it's the truth. I don't really know what else to say at this point. Reality is now. Now has no identity. What has no identity is not in a particular location, but it's direct, it's felt. It's felt everywhere. What's felt everywhere is always here. What is always here is always now. It's eternal, and it's always here. It's not defined by anything. What does it need protection from?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to push you a little bit further on that.
You pushed me a little bit further. I'm getting ready to get out of here.
I understand where you're coming from. However, is it those very strategies which you're talking about separating ourselves from, which is the ego? Is it not that those very strategies, that ego that puts food on the table, that keeps a roof over our heads, and forming our identity and finding who we are? But in today's society, if everybody was to step back,
I'm listening.
And I understand how busy and chaotic society has become. We've lost the ability to inhabit ourselves, to discover our true nature, our spirit, which is where all our information lies, everything we need lies there. But we also need to live, practically speaking, in the world that puts food on the table, that creates a roof over our head. Husband who works very hard to do all of that.
I understand that what I'm saying does not make sense. Well, it doesn't make sense. It's not about the mind. You have a partial understanding, and we've been given the grace of having tastes. To me, it's like saying that if you don't focus on beating your heart's going to stop beating and you're going to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You think that it requires your involvement in order for the mind to do its job of taking care of the body. It's all imagination.
I'm talking about it paying the bills. Sorry, I really do understand. I've worked very hard on myself. I've done an awful lot of inner work. I really do get my conflict. This is my personal conflict.
Yes, I understand.
Between
But
the two.
what does paying the bills have to do with anything else? Here's what I'm saying. It's really quite simple. You believe that you are the chooser. Every mind believes that it is making choices. Every mind believes that it is the thinker. You are the one thinking the thoughts. If you stop and you are present, what is discovered is thoughts arise by themselves. What is discovered is that decisions make themselves, even though it seems like you are making choices. When you stop following the habit, what makes the decisions is intuition. It is thoughtless. So mind says, well, if I'm following intuition, what's going to put food on the table and what's going to take care of all of the work? Because you believe that you are the chooser and you are the doer. But you are not the chooser and you are not the doer. That's the way it seems. It's the very rare person that is willing to take the experiment all the way and sits and remains in the sense of the love and the beauty and witnesses what the body does in the face of the mind's fears that are going to say, what about my life? What about my future? What about this? What about that? If you came into that, you have a half taste. You get a half taste, which is grace. But there is something that is so much bigger than a half taste. Everything is being taken care of. The idea that you have a choice is all illusion. Thoughts are arising on their own. When you are lost in the beauty, in the connection with the Absolute, everything is moved in perfection. You're not going to starve and lose your family. It's all being ordained anyway. You are not the thinker anyway. You're just lost in egoic experience of stress and strain, future and past. None of them exist. Now, I'll give you the example for myself, okay? I used to be a chiropractor. I lived in the world. I was very, very busy. This hit me over the head like a ton of bricks. And the intuitive wisdom said, drop all of it. Said, drop all of it. No sense of security with a family. But it was so obvious, it was so clear that there was no choice. The fear was the perfect test of whether I followed the egoic mind and did what was safe, or whether I turned from what was so incredibly obvious was the movement that I could not understand, but it was coming from a higher source. So it occurred. Could not imagine where the life was going or what it would do. And now it's changing the lives of everyone I know around me. Changed the lives of my family. Without the experience of doing, without the experience of choosing, without the experience of running to make money, to put a roof over my head, I realized that most awakened saints and sages lived without a home, without a roof over their head, not knowing where the next meal comes from. In this day and age, that is very, very rare. But in order to taste it to that degree, the surrender has to be to that point. That is very rare. All that I am saying is if there is surrender to that degree, you are freed. The nature of the teaching that I offer is about freedom. Offering something like this is very unusual for me. You know, it's put forth because usually when this happens, there's 2 or 3 people that have this hunger that cannot be quenched. And it's for the one who really wants to carry this all the way through. It is beautiful to do spiritual teachings and be in spiritual circles which help the life, give a greater sense of meaning and love. It's beautiful. It's just not what I do.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. You know, I just want to say a few things. You're a very beautiful group of people. You come in with real, true, genuine interest and openness. I am kind of an aberration in a way. I live in a very remote area where a community has come and they live around me. We are separated from most worldly activity. They are beings that have decided to leave the relationship with the world behind and completely immerse themselves with this on-fire hunger to completely know who they are. So this is the environment I am used to. So someone from our community lives here and has asked me if I would come. So once in a great while I offer a public forum like this. There used to be quite an ability to meet in this middle ground where most people live who have spiritual interest. But I have gotten so immersed in something that has been discovered to be the true hunger of every single human being, whether they recognize it or not. It's extreme from the perspective of most people. And the languaging maybe is not the same type of languaging that is commonly spoken in these circuits, I don't know. The reason for it is because there is a retreat that is going to be offered. And the real, true, deepest aspect of the offering is not in the content anyway. It's in something that cannot be defined by the mind. You know, there is this idea from the egoic mind that someone has the potential of becoming awake, and then awake becomes something that someone can have. But it's actually quite the opposite. What it really is a death. And no ego wants to die. They want to get something to put in their pocket. But what the death is the death of the story of someone. It sounds pretty simple, but it requires the willingness to let go of every single thing about the story of me. It is a very rare one who has the hunger to that degree, very rare and very, very gifted. Because once you've had a taste, you realize this is what the whole life is about. The more you taste it, the more you are drawn, and the more everything that once seemed important is recognized to not really be important at all. So I live in a community of people where everybody is waking up to themselves. It's just become the familiar taste, where people all over are discovering a joy and a beauty that is beyond imagination. So there is this hunger for it to be shared. It is not the hunger of someone, it's when the someone dies. It's not something someone has attained, it's not something someone knows. But the myth of the individual has died, and in that there is a vacancy. And in the vacancy what arises is directly from source without obstruction of conditioned mind. And the nature of that is pure light and love. But the beloved is yearning for you. Your mind says, I am yearning for the beloved. But the only time you ever feel the yearning are moments when the mind is quiet and you are graced with this feeling. And the mind says it is mine. But it is the beloved that is searching for all the lost children. The doorway in lies in the willingness to forget about me and follow a passion of the heart that maybe is just a flicker at this point, but the more you open to it, the more alive it becomes. The more alive it becomes, the more the beauty is revealed. The more the beauty is revealed, the more you realize there is nothing else. So there is this offering, and perhaps it is a long bridge to cross. But it is one step at a time when there is the hunger. I can see what draws me out here is the yearning of the beloved, but language is so cumbersome. I do not know what the word me really means. There is no thought in any of this. There is the feeling of the light that is moving through, and it is moving this form. It's moving every form, you just don't know it. You believe you are the doer, and thus only so much can get in. When you are being carried, there is no mind, you have no idea. What drives the movement is passion, and it is the beloved's passion and hunger for you who have forgotten. You cannot possibly imagine how deeply you are loved. It is not possible for a common person to begin to understand, yet it is the way of it. From the mind's perspective, it is taking a risk. What about my job? Do not have the timing, didn't sculpt the time out. Sounds pretty strange to me, even though I can feel something is alive. Either the guy in this chair is a lunatic, or he's speaking the truth. So now, there is a feeling of true aliveness in the room. The busyness and distracted energy is relaxed. Dealings with what about the world, what about the future have relaxed. What about the body, what about the this, what about the that? And then you get to feel something that is alive, that you cannot explain. It is a bottomless well. And it is wanting you. The way a mother who has lost a child and is searching for the child endlessly, and then finally finds their child. It is like this with every being. It is what is playing under the surface. If you are graced, you can feel an inkling of it. If you feel an inkling of it, everything else becomes secondary. Thank you. Thank you for being so open and so receptive. Okay, so I think that Paul is going to make some announcements, right? And I am going to exit, but it was very, very sweet. You know, just not to mix up impatience with passion. There's a passionate hunger for your freedom. And when the essential message behind it is not being seen, it can be intense at times. But it's passion for your happiness. It is never impatience. Okay, thank you. Okay, so if you could please remain seated for just a little while Paul makes the announcements. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for organizing all of this.